Oh dear. And of course, for some reason, if it's
Too
on
much
Skype.
for my brain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Oh my days.
Yeah. Alice's got to the back broken bone only again.
My bad.
Debbie!
Oh, can I just say, y'all are hornier than the books I read.
Yes!
I'm not apologising.
That timing for that alert, holy fucking shit. That was amazing, Vexing. Holy crap! So you guys are hornier than my book immediately as
That seems appropriate. I am not sure what's happened to my scene. It seems that it is a little scuffy, and I don't know why, so we might have to adjust it. Anyway, welcome in, Raiders. Hello, my name is Vexing Cat. I am your local tiger librarian, and I am experiencing a little bit of scuff. It does feel like we've seen it's been ages, Wild. In fact, it's been like a whole 5 minutes. It's a long time. Every moment not in your company is always sad. But thank you, Komodi. So I am going to be continuing where we left off with fairy tales every child should know. Every chapter is its own tale. Last week we did Sinbad and the 40 Thieves. Or I'm sorry, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, like the story of Aladdin and the lamp. So I am going to have to make some minor adjustments. I don't know why Brave is all silly. Okay. We'll start with this. So we'll go here. Don't know why it is acting a little bit goofy. but we ball, as we say in the business. Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Don't know why you're acting so suspicious. It's just vicious, I say. Aw, hello.
Just followed.
Welcome in, Symphonic. I apologize for not having my book absolutely ready. I decided to play with fate a bit. I think that might be as good as it's going to get with the last minute adjustments. So, welcome in everyone. Sorry for the late lateness of stream. It's just a little silly today. So we just came. So I was with Wild Osis and the Dreadship crew. We were playing some repo today. I got last minute drafted to come play, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing repo today. So now it is time for books. It is time for stories. It is time to relax and just unwind just a little bit. So, as I said previously, last week we did Alibaba or Aladdin and the 40 Thieves, or Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. So, which is from the Book of 1,000 Nights, 1,000 Arabian Nights, which is told by a storyteller. And for 1,000 nights, she told a different story without ever once repeating the stories. So that way, she did not get beheaded by the Sultan. So this is another one of those 1,001 Arabian Nights stories. This is the second voyage of Sinbad the Sailor. And let's see. This is the book cover from the one that I'm reading. This is a collection of stories curated by Hamilton Wright Mabie and his significant other, Mary Hamilton Fry. So it's just kind of an interesting book cover. Woman, feeding, I'm assuming, soup to a small child. I'm not sure. Definitely done in the Art Nouveau style. Good old Shahrazad. Maybe. I digress. We're here. We're here for story time. So welcome in, everyone. Please enjoy the story. Grab my tea. I'm good. I have a snack. I have good company. Yes, it's an excellent way to unwind post repo chaos, for sure. So this one starts, this is chapter 7. The second voyage of Sinbad the Sailor. Okay. Is my mic picking up? It is, I think so. Sometimes the sensitivity on VideoTube is a bit finicky. Should be good. Okay. All right. I designed, after my first voyage, to spend the rest of my days at Baghdad, but it was not long ere I grew weary of an indolent life, and I put to sea a second time, with merchants of known probity. We embarked on board a good ship, and after recommending ourselves to God, set sail. By the way, 2? There we go. We traded from island to island and exchanged commodities with great profit. One day we landed on an island covered with several sorts of fruit trees, but we could see neither man nor animal. We walked in the meadows, along the streams that watered them, while some diverted themselves with gathering flowers and others fruits. I took my wine and provisions, and sat down near a stream betwixt 2 high trees, which formed a thick shade. I made a good meal, and afterward fell asleep. I cannot tell you how long I slept, but when I awoke, the ship was gone.
Scissors Runner just rated with 21 viewers.
Welcome in. It's Sabrina Scissor Runner. I'm getting sogged. A soggy raid. Hello, welcome in everyone. Hello raiders. My name is Vexing Cat. I am your local tiger librarian. Hi Scissor Runner, how are you? I hope you are doing beautiful art. I love watching your streams. Today was a little hectic, so I didn't get to catch it, but I'm usually lurking.
Wait, I can do the thing from the ring. Wait.
Indeed.
I'm good. I can do the thing from the Grudge.
Very accurate. Very accurate. Phenomenal. Also, welcome in. Hello, Raiders. If you're not familiar with my content, I primarily... Oh, will do. I primarily read classic literature and poetry and occasionally play games. Lately, April was very busy with collabs and games and shenanigans. Later this month, I am going on a trip out of state to spend some time away from technology and the internet. So we'll see how that goes. But your ears started tapping on my own eardrum from that. Oh, yeah. Well, Sabrina, so Scissor Runner is, oh God, just an amazing variety streamer. They do art, they do games, just talking. They're part of a comic series. Absolutely phenomenal artist. I cannot express enough how amazing they are. That was a fun SOG moment. But today I am reading Fairy Tales That Every Child Should Know from, I think it was originally printed in 1905. She does Ara Ra. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. There we go. I think Ara. Oh, you guys got that one for free. Oh, I'm silly. Yeah, that's fair. You know, honestly, I should have Scissor Runner. You need to sit down with your incredible melting unicorn eldritch cat. Like you and I think Weldosis should do a crossover where you're both like terrifying people. It would be incredible. But anyway, I am on the first of many paragraphs in which I will be telling the story. So, Raiders, hydrate, caffeinate, grab a snack, take a moment to relax and, get comfortable, and we'll be enjoying the story. Chill vibes. If you want to catch more of my content, you can do !! Socials. If you want to come hang out with me when I'm playing video games, or we're having a view party in the not so distant future for the Eurovision in 2025 on Underrealm, ! Underrealm, 1R, and you can come check it out. See what we do. It's a VTubing group. Aw, thank you for the gifted sub. It's a VTubing group of individuals, variety of streamers, some chill, some hyperactive like Ken, that are just a variety of people that are, wow, thank you. Thank you, Bookfather.
The Bookfather gifted a tier 1 subscription to Scissors Runner.
I appreciate your generosity. That's so kind. Okay, let's see. And thank you for the follow. It's just been nonstop today, hasn't it? It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for following. Please enjoy your library card. All right. While some diverted themselves with gathering flowers and others fruits, I took my wine and provisions and sat down near a stream betwixt two high trees, which formed a thick shade. I made a good meal, and afterward fell asleep. I cannot tell how long I slept, but when I awoke, the ship was gone. In this sad condition, I was ready to die with grief. I cried out in agony, beat my head and breast, and threw myself upon the ground, where I lay some time in despair. I upbraided myself 100 times for not being content with the produce of my first voyage that might have sufficed me all my life. But all this was in vain, and my repentance came too late. At last, I resigned myself to the will of God. Not knowing what to do, I climbed up to the top of a lofty tree, from whence I looked about on all sides to see if I could discover anything that could give me hopes. When I gazed toward the sea, I could see nothing but sky and water. But looking over the land, I beheld something white, and coming down, I took what provision I had left and went toward it, the distance being so great that I could not distinguish what it was. As I approached, I thought it to be a white dome of a prodigious height and extent, and when I came up to it, I touched it, and found it to be very smooth. I went round to see if it was open on any side, but saw it was not, and that there was no climbing up to the top, as it was so smooth. It was at least 50 paces round. By this time the sun was about to set, and all of a sudden the sky became as dark as if it had been covered with a thick cloud, and I was much astonished at this sudden darkness, but much more when I found it occasioned by a bird of a monstrous size that came flying toward me. I remembered that I had often heard mariners speak of a miraculous bird called the Roc, and conceived that the great dome which I so much admired must be its egg. In short, the bird alighted and sat over the egg. As I perceived her coming, I crept close to the egg, so that I had before me one of the legs of the bird, which was as big as the trunk of a tree. I tied myself strongly to it with my turban in hopes that the Roc next morning would carry me with her out of this desert island. After having passed the night in this condition, the bird flew away as soon as it was daylight and carried me so high that I could not discern the earth. She afterward descended with so much rapidity that I lost my senses. But when I found myself on the ground, I speedily untied the knot, and had scarcely done so when the Roc, having taken up a serpent of a monstrous length in her bill, flew away. The spot where it left me was encompassed on all sides by mountains that seemed to reach above the clouds, and so steep that there was no possibility of getting out of the valley. This was a new perplexity, so that when I compared this place with the desert island, oh dear.
Deus Kane just subscribed for 8 months.
Oh, Deus, thank you. Welcome in. I hope you're doing well. Let's see. I think I need to adjust this just a touch more. Just a little bit. I don't know. I don't have the trick to it, I think. Unfortunate. Let's see. What if I do this and this and move this over here. And this. There. Maybe that'll help. We'll see. All right. Let's get back to the story. As I walked through this valley, I perceived, let's see, all sides, I gained nothing by the change. Yeah. This was a new perplexity. So that when I compared this place with the desert island from which the rock had brought me, I found that I had gained nothing by the change. As I walked through this valley, I perceived it was strewed with diamonds, some of which were of surprising bigness. I took pleasure in looking upon them, but shortly saw at a distance such objects as greatly diminished my satisfaction, and which I could not view without terror. Namely, a great number of serpents, so monstrous that the least of them was capable of swallowing an elephant. They retired in the daytime to their dens, where they hid themselves from the rock, their enemy, and came out only in the night. I spent the day in walking about in the valley, resting myself at times in such places as I thought most convenient. When night came on, I went into a cave, where I thought I might repose in safety. I secured the entrance, which was low and narrow, with a great stone to preserve me from the serpents, but not so far as to exclude the light. I supped on part of my provisions, but the serpents, which began hissing round me, put me into such extreme fear that I did not sleep. There, honestly. When day appeared, the serpents retired, and I came out of the cave trembling. I can justly say that I walked upon diamonds without feeling any inclination to touch them. At last I sat down, and notwithstanding my apprehensions, not having closed my eyes during the night, fell asleep. After having eaten a little more of my provisions, but I had scarcely shut my eyes when something that fell by me with a great noise awakened me. This was a large piece of raw meat, and at the same time I saw several others fall down from the rocks in different places. I had always regarded as fabulous what I had heard sailors and others relate of the Valley of Diamonds, and of the stratagems employed by merchants to obtain jewels from thence. But now I found that they had stated nothing but the truth. For the fact is that the merchants come to the neighborhood of this valley when the eagles have young ones, and throwing great joints of meat into the valley, the diamonds, upon whose points they fall, stick to them. The eagles, which are stronger in this country than anywhere else, pounce with great force upon those pieces of meat, and carry them to their nests on the precipices of the rocks to feed their young. The merchants at this time run to their nests, disturb and drive off the eagles by their shouts, and take away the diamonds that stick to the meat. I perceived in this device the means of my deliverance. Having collected together the largest diamonds I could find, I put them into the leather bag in which I used to carry my provisions. I took the largest of the pieces of meat, tied it close round me with the cloth of my turban, and then laid myself upon the ground, with my face downward, the bag of diamonds being made fast to my girdle. I had scarcely placed myself in this posture when one of the eagles, having taken me up with the piece of meat to which I was fastened, carried me to his nest on the top of the mountain. The merchants immediately began their shouting to frighten the eagles, and when they had obliged them to quit their prey, one of them came to the nest where I was. He was much alarmed when he saw me, but recovering himself, instead of inquiring how I came thither, began to quarrel with me and asked why I stole his goods. You will treat me, replied I, with more civility when you know me better. Do not be uneasy. I have diamonds enough for you and myself, more than all the other merchants together. Whatever they have, they owe to chance, but I selected for myself in the bottom of the valley those which you see in this bag. I had scarcely done speaking when the other merchants came crowding about us, much astonished to see me, but they were much more surprised when I told them my story. They conducted me to their encampment, and there, having opened my bag, they were surprised at the largeness of my diamonds and confessed that they had never seen any of such size and
Thanks TS just
perfection.
rated with 44 viewers.
Links TS, welcome in. Hello raiders, welcome. My name is Vexing Cat. I'm your local tiger librarian. I read classic literature and poetry. Currently I'm reading Fairy Tales Every Child Should Know, and this is the second voyage of Sinbad the Sailor from 1001 Arabian Nights.
J'hésite. J'hésite parce que Ellie du Swag est en live. Est-ce que je fais un raid chez Ellie du Swag? Un retour d'amour, c'est normal, elle m'a fait un raid la dernière fois.
Amazing.
Ce serait gentil.
Amazement. I have not been rated by a French VTuber before, aside from Skur Chaos, so welcome in. Hello. Please make sure you take care of yourself, hydrate, caffeinate, do whatever you need to enjoy the story. And welcome in. Hello. International raid. It's like I had a UK raid, I had an Italian raid, I had a French raid. This is wonderful. Welcome in, everyone. There we go. Lost my place for a second. I prayed the merchant who owned the nest to which I had been carried, for every merchant had his own, to take as many for his share as he pleased. He contented himself with one, and that, too, the least of them, and when I pressed him to take more, without fear of doing me any injury, "No," said he, "I am very well satisfied with this, which is valuable enough to save me the trouble of making any more voyages, and will raise as great a fortune as I desire." I spent the night with the merchants, to whom I related my story a second time for the satisfaction of those who had not heard it. I could not moderate my joy when I found myself delivered from the danger I have mentioned. I thought myself in a dream, and could scarcely believe myself out of danger. The merchants had thrown their pieces of meat into the valley for several days, and each of them being satisfied with the diamonds that had fallen to his lot, we left the place the next morning, and travelled near high mountains, where there were serpents of a prodigious length, which we had the good fortune to escape. We took shipping at the first port we reached, and touched at the Isle of Roha, where the trees grow that yield camphor. This tree is so large, and its branches so thick, that 100 men may easily sit under its shade. The juice of which the camphor is made exudes from a hole bored in the upper part of the tree, and is received in a vessel, where it thickens to a consistency and becomes what we call camphor. After the juice is thus drawn out, the tree withers and dies. In this island is also found the rhinoceros, an animal less than the elephant but larger than the buffalo. It has a horn upon its nose, about a cubit in length. This horn is solid and cleft through the middle. The rhinoceros fights with the elephant, runs his horn into his belly, and
Drink
carries him
before you
off upon his
dehydrate.
head. Oh, camphor is an older term for henna. I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. The more you know. And carries him off upon his head. But the blood and the fat of the elephant running into his eyes and making him blind, he falls to the ground. And then, strange to relate, the roc comes and carries them both away in her claws for food for her young ones. Also, welcome in, Valis. Thank you for the lurk. Not sure why I didn't trigger there. Probably because I didn't have BikuBot open. That's alright, I've got it fixed. Just all kinds of shenanigans today. The roc comes and carries them both away in her claws for food for her young ones. I pass over many other things peculiar to this island, lest I should weary you. Here I exchanged some of my diamonds for merchandise. From hence we went to other islands, and at last, having touched at several trading towns of the continent, we landed at Bussorah, from whence I proceeded to Baghdad. There I immediately gave large presents to the poor, and lived honorably upon the vast riches I had brought, and gained with so much fatigue. Thus, Sinbad ended the relation of the second voyage, gave Hindbad another 100 sequins, and invited him to come the next day to hear the account of the third. Sinbad, always getting into adventures. Anyway, that was the first chapter. Where are we at here? I can probably read another chapter before we have a need for an ad break. So, friendly reminder to stretch like this. Good stretch. And as Valis so pointed out, remember to hydrate. Now that is a rousing endorsement. Symphonic, I successfully put you into an EP mof. Good night, everyone, and lots of love, head pats, and drink your water. Be sure to drink plenty of water and stay hydrated. In Symphonic, that's fair. Get some sleep. I hope you have a wonderful night's rest and wonderful dreams. Let's see. We're on to chapter 8, which, there we go, chapter marker. The White Cat. Oh, speaking of white cats, Scissor Runner, it's you! There was once a king who had 3 sons. All remarkably handsome in their persons, and in their tempers brave and noble. Some wicked courtiers made the king believe that the princes were impatient to wear the crown, and that they were contriving a plot to deprive him of his scepter and his kingdom. The king felt he was growing old, but as he found himself as capable of governing as he had ever been, he had no inclination to resign his power, and therefore, that he might pass the rest of his days peaceably, He determined to employ the princes in such a manner as at once to give each of them the hope of succeeding to the crown, and fill up the time they might otherwise spend in so undutiful a manner. He sent for them to his cabinet. And after conversing with them kindly, he added, "You must be sensible, my dear children, that my great age prevents me from attending so closely as I have hitherto done to state affairs. I fear this may be injurious to my subjects. I therefore desire to place my crown on the head of one of you. But it is no more than just that in return for such a present you should procure me some amusement in my retirement before I leave the capital forever. I cannot help thinking that a little dog that is handsome, faithful, and engaging would be the very thing to make me happy. So that, without bestowing a preference on either of you, I declare that he who brings me the most perfect little dog shall be my successor." The princes were much surprised at the fancy of their father to have a little dog, yet they accepted the proposition with pleasure, and accordingly, after taking leave of the king, who presented them with abundance of money and jewels, and appointed that day 12th for their return, they set off on their travels. Before taking leave of each other, however, they took some refreshment together in an old palace about 3 miles out of town, where they agreed to meet in the same place on that day 12th, and go all together with their presents to court. They also agreed to change their names, that they might be unknown to everyone in their travels. Each took a different road, but it is intended to relate the adventures of only the youngest, who was the handsomest, most amiable, and accomplished prince that had ever been seen. No day passed, as he traveled from town to town, that he did not buy all the handsome dogs that fell in his way, and as soon as he saw one that was handsomer than those he had before, he made a present of the last, for 20 servants would have been scarcely sufficient to take care of all the dogs he was continually buying. At length, wandering, he knew not whither, he found himself in a forest. Night suddenly came on, and with it a violent storm of thunder, lightning, and rain. To add to his perplexity, he lost his path and could find no way out of the forest. After he had groped about for a long time, he perceived a light, which made him suppose that he was not far from some house. He accordingly pursued his way towards it, and in a short time found himself at the gates of the most magnificent palace he ever beheld. The door that opened into it was made of gold, covered with sapphire stones, which cast so resplendent a brightness over everything around that scarcely could the strongest eyesight bear to look at it. This was the light the prince had seen from the forest. The walls of the building were of transparent porcelain, variously colored, and represented the history of all the fairies that had existed from the beginning of the world. The prince, coming back to the golden door, observed a deer's foot fastened to a chain of diamonds. He could not help wondering at the magnificence he beheld, and the security in which the inhabitants seemed to live. "For," said he to himself, "nothing can be easier than for thieves to steal this chain, and as many of the sapphire stones as would make their fortunes." He pulled the chain, and heard a bell, the sound of which was exquisite. In a few moments the door was opened, but he perceived nothing but 12 hands in the air, each holding a torch. The prince was so astonished that he durst not move a step. When he felt himself gently pushed on by some other hands from behind him, he walked on in great perplexity, till he entered a vestibule inlaid with porphyry and lapis stone. There the most melodious voice he had ever heard chanted the following words: "Welcome, prince, no danger fear, mirth and love attend you here. You shall break the magic spell that on a beauteous lady fell. Welcome, prince, no danger fear, mirth and love attend you here." The prince now advanced with confidence, wondering what these words could mean. The hands which moved him forward towards a large door of coral, which opened of itself to give him admittance into a splendid apartment built of mother of pearl, through which he passed into others so richly adorned with paintings and jewels, and so resplendently lighted with thousands of lamps. I'm going to say girandoles? I'm going to need to look that one up. I do not know that word. I'm going to need exclamation point word in chat when somebody has a second. One of you lovely mods. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, that's funny. All right. Dictionary. Let's see here. Girandoles? Girandoles. Well, I know what it looks like. Oh, they're almost like a candelabra. They're pretty. Well, now we know what it is, but how do we pronounce it? Z. So J-I-R, pronounce it girandole. Okay. Today I learned girandole. Yes, 100% scissor runner. Resplendently lighted with thousands of lamps, girandoles, and lustres, that the prince imagined he must be in an enchanted palace. When he had passed through 60 apartments, all equally splendid, he was stopped by the hands, and a large easy chair advanced of itself towards the chimney, and the hands, which he observed were extremely white and delicate, took off his wet clothes and supplied their place with the finest linen imaginable, and then added a commodious wrapping gown, embroidered with the brightest gold, and all over enriched with pearls. The hands next brought him an elegant dressing table, and combed his hair so very gently that he scarcely felt their touch. They held before him a beautiful basin filled with perfumes for him to wash his face and hands, and afterwards took off the wrapping gown and dressed him in a suit of clothes of still greater splendor. When his dress was complete, they conducted him to an apartment he had not yet seen, in which also was magnificently furnished. Oh, before I forget. There we go. There was in it a table spread for a repast, and everything upon it was of the purest gold, adorned with jewels. The prince observed there were 2 covers set, and was wondering who was to be his companion, when his attention was suddenly caught by a small figure not a foot high, which just then entered the room and advanced towards him. It had on a long black veil, and was supported by 2 cats dressed in mourning, and with swords by their sides. They were followed by a numerous retinue of cats, some carrying cages full of rats, and others mouse-traps full of mice. The prince was at a loss what to think. The little figure now approached, and throwing aside her veil, he beheld a most beautiful white cat. She seemed young and melancholy, and addressing herself to the prince, she said, "Young prince, you are welcome. Your presence affords me the greatest pleasure." "Madam," replied the prince, "I would fain thank you for your generosity, nor can I help observing that you must be an extraordinary creature to possess with your present form the gift of speech and the magnificent palace I have seen." "All this is very true," answered the beautiful cat. "But, prince, I am not fond of talking, and least of all do I like compliments. Let us therefore sit down to supper." The trunkless hands then placed the dishes on the table, and the prince and white cat seated themselves. The first dish was a pie made of young pigeons, and the next was a fricassee of the fattest mice. The view of the one made the prince almost afraid to taste the other, till the white cat, who guessed his thoughts, assured him that there were certain dishes at table in which there was not a morsel of either rat or mouse, which had been dressed on purpose for him. Accordingly, he ate heartily of such as she recommended. When supper was over, the prince perceived that the white cat had a portrait set in gold hanging to one of her feet. He begged her permission to look at it, when, to his astonishment, he saw the portrait of a handsome young man that exactly resembled himself. He thought there was something very extraordinary in all this, yet, as the white cat sighed and looked very sorrowful, he did not venture to ask any questions. He conversed with her on different subjects, and found her extremely well versed in everything that was passing in the world. When night was far advanced, the white cat wished him a good night, and he was conducted by the hands to his bedchamber, which was different still from anything he had seen in the palace, being hung with the wings of butterflies mixed with the most curious feathers. His bed was of gauze, festooned with bunches of the gayest ribbons, and the looking-glasses reached from the floor to the ceiling. The prince was undressed and put into bed by the hands without speaking a word. He, however, slept little, and in the morning was awakened by a confused noise. The hands took him out of bed and put on him a handsome hunting jacket. He looked into the courtyard and perceived more than 500 cats busily employed in preparing for the field, for this was a day of festival. Presently the white cat came to his apartment, and having politely inquired after his health, she invited him to partake of their amusement. The prince willingly accepted, mounted a wooden horse, richly caparisoned, yeah, I think, because I know that's the armament, right? Richly caparisoned, which had been prepared for him, and which he was assured would gallop to admiration. The beautiful white cat mounted a monkey dressed in a dragoon's bonnet, which made her look so fierce that all the rats and mice ran away in the utmost terror. Everything being ready, The horns sounded, and away they went. No hunting was ever more agreeable. The cats ran faster than the hares and rabbits, and when they caught any, they were hunted in the presence of the white cat. And 1,000 cunning tricks were played, nor were the birds in safety, for the monkey made nothing of climbing up the trees, with the white cat on his back, to the nest of the young eagles. When the hunting was over, the whole retinue returned to the palace, and the white cat immediately exchanged her dragoon's cap for the veil, and sat down to supper with the prince, who, being very hungry, ate heartily, and afterwards partook with her of the most delicious liquors, which, being often repeated, made him forget that he was to procure a little dog for the old king. He thought no longer of anything but of pleasing the sweet little creature who received him so courteously. Accordingly, every day was spent in new amusements. The prince had almost forgotten his country and relations, and sometimes even regretted that he was not a cat. So great was his affection for his mewing companions. Alas, said he to the white cat, how will it affect me to leave you, whom I love so much? Either make yourself a lady, or make me a cat. She smiled at the prince's wish, but made him scarcely any reply. Based prince. Yeah, pretty much. At length the 12-month was nearly expired. The white cat, who knew the very day when the prince was to reach his father's palace, reminded him that he had but 3 days longer to look for a perfect little dog. The prince, astonished at his own forgetfulness, began to afflict himself when the cat told him not to be so sorrowful, since she would not only provide him with a little dog, but also with a wooden horse, which should convey him safely in less than 12 hours. Look here, said she, showing him an acorn. This contains what you desire. The prince put the acorn to his ear, and heard the barking of a little dog. Transported with joy, he thanked the cat 1,000 times, and the next day, bidding her tenderly adieu, he set out on his return. The prince arrived first at the place of rendezvous, and was soon joined by his brothers. They mutually embraced and began to give an account of their success, when the youngest showed them only a little mongrel cur, telling them he thought he could not fail to please the king from its extraordinary beauty. The brothers trod on each other's toes under the table, as much as to say, we have not much to fear from this sorry-looking animal. The next day they went together to the palace. The dogs of the 2 elder princes were lying on cushions, and so curiously wrapped around with embroidered quilts that one would scarcely venture to touch them. The youngest produced his cur, dirty all over, and all wondered how the prince could hope to receive a crown for such a present. The king examined the 2 little dogs of the elder princes, and declared he thought them so equally beautiful that he knew not to which, with justice, he could give the preference. They accordingly began to dispute, when the youngest prince, taking his acorn from his pocket, soon ended their contention, for a little dog appeared which could with ease go through the smallest ring, and was besides a miracle of beauty. Oh, thank you for the follow. That's very kind. Welcome in, Echo Loco. Let's see. Grab that. Put that over. Boop. Put that over. Boop. There we go. Welcome in, and thank you for the follow. The king could not possibly hesitate in declaring his satisfaction. Yet, as he was not more inclined than the year before to part with his crown, he could think of nothing more to his purpose than telling his sons that he was extremely obliged to them for the pains they had taken, and that since they had succeeded so well, he could not but wish they would make a second attempt. He therefore begged they would take another year for procuring him a piece of cambric so fine as to be drawn through the eye of a small needle. The three princes thought this very hard, yet they set out in obedience in the king's command. The two eldest took different roads, and the youngest remounted his wooden horse, and in a short time arrived at the palace of his beloved white cat, who received him with the greatest joy, while the trunkless hands helped him to dismount, and provided him with immediate refreshments, after which the prince gave the white cat an account of the admiration which had been bestowed on the beautiful little dog, and informed her of his father's farther injunction. "Make yourself perfectly easy, dear prince," said she. "I have in my palace some cats that are perfectly clever in making such cambric as the king requires, so that you have nothing to do but to give me the pleasure of your company while it is in making, and I will procure you all the amusement possible." She accordingly ordered the most curious fireworks to be played off in sight of the window of the apartment in which they were sitting, and nothing but festivity and rejoicing was heard throughout the palace for the prince's return, as the white cat continually gave proofs of an excellent understanding. The prince was by no means tired of her company. She talked with him of state affairs, of theaters, of fashions. In short, she was at a loss on no subject whatever, so that when the prince was alone he had plenty of amusements. And thinking how it could possibly be that a small white cat could be so endowed with all the powers of human creatures. The 12-month in this manner again passed insensibly away. But the cat took care to remind the prince of his duty in proper time. "For once, my prince," said she, "I will have the pleasure of equipping you as suits your high rank." When looking into the courtyard he saw a superb car, ornamented all over with gold, silver, pearls, and diamonds, drawn by 12 horses as white as snow, and harnessed in the most sumptuous trappings. And behind the car 1,000 guards, richly apparelled, were in waiting to attend on the prince's person. She then presented him with a nut. You will find in it," said she, the piece of cambric I promised you. Do not break the shell till you are in the presence of the king, your father." "Hey, Miv, welcome in. I think I saw you here earlier. Hello. I hope you're doing well." "Do not break the shell till you are in the presence of the king, your father." Then, to prevent the acknowledgments which the prince was about to offer, she hastily bade him adieu. Nothing could exceed the speed with which the snow-white horses conveyed the prince to his father's palace, where his brothers had just arrived before him. They embraced each other and demanded an immediate audience of the king, who received them with the greatest kindness. The princes hastened to place at the feet of his majesty the curious present he had required them to procure. The eldest produced a piece of cambric that was so extremely fine that his friends had no doubt of its passing the eye of the needle, which was now delivered to the king, having been kept locked up in the custody of his majesty's treasurer all the time. Everyone supposed he would certainly obtain the crown, but when the king tried to draw it through the eye of the needle, it would not pass, though it failed but very little. Then came the second prince, who made as sure of obtaining the crown as his brother had done, but alas, with no better success. For though his piece of cambric was exquisitely fine, yet it could not be drawn through the eye of the needle. It was now the youngest prince's turn, who accordingly advanced, and opening an elegant little box inlaid with jewels, he took out a walnut, and cracked the shell, imagining he should immediately perceive his piece of cambric. But what was his astonishment to find nothing but a filbert! He did not, however, lose his hopes. He cracked the filbert, and it presented him with a cherry stone. The lords of the court who had assembled to witness this extraordinary trial could not, any more than the princes his brothers, refrain from laughing. To think he should be so silly as to claim with him the crown on no better pretensions. The prince, however, cracked the cherry stone, which was filled with a kernel. He divided it and found in the middle of a grain of wheat, and in the grain a millet seed. He was now absolutely confounded, and could not help muttering between his teeth, "Oh, white cat, thou hast deceived me." At this instant he felt his hand scratched by the claw of a cat, upon which he again took courage, and opening the grain of millet seed, to the astonishment of all present, he drew forth a piece of cambric 400 yards long, and fine enough to be drawn with perfect ease through the eye of the needle. When the king found he had no pretext left for refusing the crown to his youngest son, he sighed deeply, and it was easy to be seen that he was sorry for the prince's success. "My sons," said he, "it is so gratifying to the heart of a father to receive proofs of his children's love and obedience, that I cannot refuse myself the satisfaction of requiring of you one thing more. You must undertake another expedition, and whichever by the end of a year brings me the most beautiful lady shall marry her and obtain my crown." So they again took leave of the king and of each other, and set out without delay. And in less than 12 hours our young prince arrived in his splendid car at the palace of his dear white cat. Everything went on as before till the end of another year. At length only one day remained of the year, when the white cat thus addressed him: "Tomorrow, my prince, you must present yourself at the palace of your father, and give him a proof of your obedience. It depends only on yourself to conduct thither the most beautiful princess ever yet beheld, for the time is come when the enchantment by which I am bound may be ended. You must cut off my head and tail," continued she, "and throw them into the fire." "I," said the prince hastily, "I cut off your head and tail? You surely mean to try my affection, which, believe me, beautiful cat, is truly yours." "You mistake me, generous prince," said she. "I do not doubt your regard. But if you wish to see me in any other form than that of a cat, you must consent to do as I desire." "Then you will have done me a service I shall never be able sufficiently to repay." The prince's eyes filled with tears as she spoke, yet he considered himself obliged to undertake the dreadful task, and the cat continued to press him with greater eagerness. With a trembling hand he drew his sword, cut off her head and tail, and threw them into the fire. No sooner was this done than the most beautiful lady his eyes had ever seen stood before him, and before he had sufficiently recovered from his surprise to speak to her, a long train of attendants, who at the same moment as their mistress were changed to their natural shapes, came to offer their congratulations to the queen and inquire her commands. She received them with the kindest the greatest kindness, and ordering them to withdraw, she thus addressed the astonished prince. Do not imagine, dear prince, that I have always been a cat, or that I am of obscure birth. My father was the monarch of 6 kingdoms. He tenderly loved my mother, leaving her always at liberty to follow her own inclinations. Her prevailing passion was to travel, and a short time before my birth, having heard of some fairies who were in possession of the largest gardens filled with the most delicious fruits, she had so strong a desire to eat some of them that she set out for the country in which they lived. She arrived at their abode, which she found to be a magnificent palace, on all sides glittering with gold and precious stones. She knocked a long time at the gates, but no one came, nor could she perceive the least sign that it had any inhabitant. The difficulty, however, did but increase the violence of my mother's longing, for she saw the tops of the trees above the garden walls loaded with the most luscious fruits. The queen, in despair, ordered her attendants to place tents close to the door of the palace. But having waited 6 weeks without seeing anyone pass the gates, she fell sick of vexation, and her life was despaired of. One night, as she lay half asleep, she turned herself about, and opening her eyes, perceived a little old woman, very ugly and deformed, seated in the easy chair by her bedside. I and my sister fairies, said she, take it very ill that your majesty should so obstinately persist in getting some of our fruit. But since so precious a life is at stake, we consent to give you as much as you can carry away, provided you will give us in return what we shall ask. Ah, kind fairy, cried the queen, I will give you anything I possessed, even my very kingdoms, on condition that I eat of your fruit. The old fairy then informed the queen that what they required was that she would give them the child she was going to have as soon as she should be born, adding that every possible care should be taken of her, and that she should become the most accomplished princess. The queen replied that however cruel the condition, she must accept it, since nothing but the fruit could save her life. In short, dear prince, continued the lady, my mother instantly got out of bed, was dressed by her attendants, entered the palace, and satisfied her longing. When the queen had eaten her fill, she ordered 4,000 mules to be procured and loaded with the fruit, which had the virtue of continuing all the year round in a state of perfection. Thus provided, she returned to the king, my father, who, with the whole court, received her with rejoicings, as it was before imagined she would die of disappointment. All this time the queen said nothing to my father of the promise she had made to give her daughter to the fairies, so that when the time was come that she expected my birth, she grew very melancholy, till at length, being pressed by the king, she declared to him the truth. Nothing could exceed his affliction when he heard that his only child, when born, was to be given to the fairies. He bore it, however, as well as he could, for fear of adding to my mother's grief, and also believing he should find some means of keeping me in a place of safety, which the fairies would not be able to approach. As soon, therefore, as I was born, he had me conveyed to a tower in the palace, to which there were 20 flights of stairs, and a door to each of which my father kept the key, so that none came near me without his consent. When the fairies heard of what had been done, they sent first to demand me, and on my father's refusal they let loose a monstrous dragon, who devoured men, women, and children, and the breath of whose nostrils destroyed everything it came near, so that the trees and plants began to die in great abundance. The grief of the king at seeing this could scarcely be equaled. One second. Oh, okay. Whoop. There we go. And finding that his whole kingdom would in a short time be reduced to famine, he consented to give me into their hands. I was accordingly laid in a cradle of mother of pearl, ornamented with gold and jewels, and carried to the palace, when the dragon immediately disappeared. The fairies placed me in a tower of their palace, elegantly furnished, but to which there was no door, so that whoever approached was obliged to come by the windows, which were a great height from the ground. From these I had the liberty of getting out into a delightful garden, in which were baths and every sort of cooling fruit. In this place was I educated by the fairies, who behaved to me with the greatest kindness. My clothes were splendid, and I was instructed in every kind of accomplishment. In short, Prince, if I had never seen anyone but themselves, I should have remained very happy. One of the windows of my tower overlooked a long avenue shaded with trees, so that I had never seen in it a human creature. One day, however, as I was talking at this window with my parrot, I perceived a young gentleman who was listening to our conversation. As I had never seen a man but in pictures, I was not sorry for the opportunity of gratifying my curiosity. I thought him a very pleasing object, and at length bowed in the most respectful manner, without daring to speak, for he knew that I was in the palace of the fairies. When it began to grow dark, he went away, and I vainly endeavored to see which road he took. The next morning, as soon as it was light, I again placed myself at the window, and had the pleasure of seeing that the gentleman had returned to the same place. He now spoke to me through a speaking trumpet, and informed me that he thought me a most charming lady, and that he should be very unhappy if he did not pass his life in my company. Quick 3-minute warning before ads. I'm going to try and finish the story, but if I can't, I'll pause before I continue on. I resolved to find some means of escaping from my tower with the engaging prince I had seen. I was not long in devising a means for the execution of my project. I begged the fairies to bring me a netting needle, a mesh, and some cord, saying I wished to make some nets to amuse myself with catching birds at my window. This they readily complied with, and in a short time I completed a ladder long enough to reach the ground. I now sent my parrot to the prince to beg he would come to his usual place, as I wished to speak with him. He did not fail, and finding the ladder, mounted it and quickly entered my tower. This at first alarmed me, but the charms of his conversation had restored me to tranquillity, when all at once the window opened, and the fairy Violet, mounted on the dragon's back, rushed into the tower. My beloved prince thought of nothing but how to defend me from their fury, for I had had time to relate to him my story previous to this cruel interruption, but their numbers overpowered him, and the fairy Violet had the barbarity to command the dragon to devour my prince before my eyes. In my despair, I would have thrown myself also into the mouth of the horrible monster, but this they took care to prevent, saying my life should be preserved for greater punishment. The fairy then touched me with her wand, and I instantly became a white cat. She next conducted me to this palace, which belonged to my father, and gave me a train of cats for my attendants, together with the 12 hands which waited on your highness. She then informed me of my birth. Oh,
Rose
welcome in,
12888 just followed.
888. Thank you for the follow. She then informed me of my birth and the death of my parents, and pronounced upon me what she imagined the greatest of maledictions. Oh, thank you for the bit.
Rose 12888 cheered 1 bit.
That I should not be restored to my natural figure till a young prince, the perfect resemblance of him I had lost, should cut off my head and tail. You are that perfect resemblance. Oh, and accordingly you have ended the enchantment. All right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll finish the rest of the tale when I come back. I am out of snoozes, so I have to run this ad break. But when I return, we'll finish the story and start the next chapter. So hang tight, and I will be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. It took me just a little bit longer than I wanted, but we're here. So, hello everyone. Let's see. Yes. When a fairy lays a curse, it covers the rule to break it too. It doesn't just say how long it'll take. True. Hey Sloth, how are you? For some reason my mic is not making my mouth move. I don't know. Ba 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 ba. No delay. I don't know. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Me, me. I'm just too quiet, I think. It's the nature of the beast. I have been well. Today was a busy day, but before I came in to stream for this, I got drafted into Underrealm's, like the Dreadship campaign that they do on Tuesdays for D&D. Got pulled in for repo, so I'm hoping that Tiny recovers. Though she wasn't feeling so well, and I do know that read me back to sleep. I can do that, Para. That I can do. So currently we are reading The White Cat, which is a fairy tale that was, I guess, curated and added to this book by Hamilton. So let's see here. Bear with me a second. Hamilton Wright, maybe. There we go. Okay, so we will continue this story. I think we have like maybe 3 or 4 more chapters in us today. We're already an hour and a half in. It's just been wild. I don't know about that, Sloth, but I enjoy everyone's company when they're here. That is an incredible emote. Side note. Okay, so we continue where we left off on the White Cat. And I'm looking at who all is here. So speaking of who all is here, I know it did a shout out for Scissor Runners. I don't know if my mods are here. All of my mods are here. Let's do a shout out for Kintran. And we need one for Kintran, we need one for the Book Father, we need one for Neff Darath, the Lore Keeper, all my booktubers that are here, Parasibin, who is a mycelium. I forget the type of mushroom, but a mushroom VTuber. Awesome. Also super sweet lady. Let me see. Very, very many books. A lot of booktubers, which I think the booktubing community is incredibly generous and kind with each other. Honestly, a shout out for you. So Kintrin, I found, I think like a year ago originally, they were streaming, they were reading, oh gosh, what was it at that time? But yeah, they are a wolf.
Admiral Potentilla, do you think it kind or wise in the sudden way to kill a poor enchanter with your eyes?
The smile at the end, that was so great. So they were, let's see, rivals of Sherlock Holmes. Ooh, okay. Like Moriarty and whatnot. That's a good one. A lot of librarians that give you a heart attack. He was supposed to sound like a croaking when singing. Oh, so like some sort of gravelly singing songs, croaking sound when he's using his voice. That would have been really cool. It ripped your eyes back to the screen. Well, you caught everyone's attention, Kintron. Good job. Shout out for Neff Darath, the Lore Keeper. Let's see if I spelled that correctly. Ah, I did. So Neff I found over a year and a half ago. Neff is probably one of the first booktubers that I think he rated into me originally. I'm not 100% sure. But he has a community, I think it's called the
And
Ancient
tiny
Library.
storyteller in my head's like, that's not my fucking problem, bud. You need to figure
Hi.
that out on your own.
Hey,
Like,
Fallen,
dude,
welcome
I'm
in.
not the storyteller. That's you. No.
Hi.
You're the writer. I'm the storyteller. I told part of the story. You got to do the rest.
I should really put those below.
No, that's not how. Okay, fine. You're gone.
I should definitely put those below the shout-outs.
Yeah.
But yes, so Neff is an amazing variety streamer. Well, no, primarily reading and just chatting streamer. Very supportive of all booktubers. Does a lot of work with people that are like trying to make affiliate and trying to make what's the word? What's after affiliate? A partner. People that are trying to work on getting their communities together to become better and more prolific streamers. And hello, Moog. Hi, Moog. Welcome in.
Moog just rated with 16 viewers.
My goodness. Yes, we are reading some fairy tales. Well, at the moment, I was doing shouties. And thank you for the subscription again, Fallen. Fallen Thespian, if you guys are not familiar, is a British VTuber. Ah, here we go. This is Moog. Oh, excellent. It's you. The Black Leopard by, what was that, Leopold James? No. Not doing anything. It is what it is, Moog. Welcome in. Hello, Raiders. My name is Vexing Cat. I am a tiger librarian VTuber. I read classic literature like today, which is fairy tales every child should know, and poetry, usually from the 19th and 20th century, give or take. Basically anything that I would not get me copyright infringement if, like, Twitch decides to look too closely. But welcome in. Hello. I am part of a VTuber group called Underrealm. You guys should check them out with an exclamation point Underrealm, like so. We are a ever-growing group of folks. There's 13 of us currently. Our community continues to grow, but we are a variety of streamers. We have fighting streamers, we have reading streamers, we have horror and terror streamers that play scary games, and a little bit of everything. So if you're not familiar with Underrealm, please come check us out. Yeah, there's a lot of cool cats and kittens out there. Actually, Gen 2 has another cat VTuber. She is a 100-year-old snow leopard baker, and she's part of the same gen that I am in. She's Yuki Sukamori. She's great. But yeah, I am currently reading The White Cat, almost finished with this story. I don't know, I raids could like baffle me because it's like, why? I'm just reading. Oh,
Chaos just rated with 13 viewers.
It's just so funny. Oh my goodness, this is the cutest sheep on all of Twitch. This is easily the best sheep. Yes, my sheep attack. My wife! Oh my goodness. So you guys, it should show a clip of her in a second, but Screw Chaos, aka Sheepy, is a variety streamer, mostly games, but a talented artist as well. You guys have got to see their work. Here we go. Speaking of which, a drawing stream. Bébé, je vous emmène. I don't know, all of my French came from Sheepy. An omnibus. Oh no, it'll just be one after another. Omnibus is also a variety streamer, mostly gaming. It should show a clip of him in a second. He has got an amazing voice, beautiful model. I don't know what's going on today, but everyone's saying hello, so thank you. It is a duo raid. Omni raid, welcome in Omnibus. Raiders, if you're not familiar with my content, hello, my name is Vexing Cat, or Vex, or Vexing, or Miss Vex if you're being naughty, and I read classic literature and poetry, and today I'm reading Fairy Tales That Every Child Should Know by Hamilton Wright, maybe. You're falling in love? Oh, I fall in love with Sheepy too. I understand. Fair Maiden. Oh my goodness. Fair Maiden Vexing. Oh no, I've got all the voices too. But yes, okay. Back to it. We're focusing. We're jingle jingle to the Mac rooms. Jingle jingle. Let's go back to the story. Let's see here. Okay. Let's start. There we go. She then informed me of my birth and the death of my parents, and pronounced upon me what she imagined the greatest of maledictions. That I should not be restored to my natural figure till a young prince, the perfect resemblance of him I had lost, should cut off my head and tail. You are the perfect resemblance, and accordingly you have ended the enchantment. I need not add that I already love you more than my life. Let us therefore hasten to the palace of the king your father, and obtain his approbation to our marriage. The prince and princess accordingly set out side by side in a car of still greater splendor than before, and reached the palace just as the two brothers had arrived with two beautiful princesses. The king, hearing that each of his sons had succeeded in finding what he had required, again began to think of some new expedient to delay the time of his resigning his crown. But when the whole court were with the king assembled to pass judgment, the princess who accompanied the youngest, perceiving his thoughts by his countenance, stepped majestically forward, and thus addressed him. What pity that your majesty, who is so capable of governing, should think of resigning the crown. I am fortunate enough to have 6 kingdoms in my possession. Permit me to bestow one on each of the eldest princes, and to enjoy the remaining 4 in the society of the youngest. And may it please your majesty to keep your own kingdom, and make no decision concerning the beauty of 3 princesses, who, without such a proof of your majesty's preference, will no doubt live happily together. The air resounded with the applauses of the assembly. The young prince and princess embraced the king, and next their brothers and sisters. The 3 weddings immediately took place, and the kingdoms were divided as the princess had proposed. That was good ending. Before you dihydrate. Oh, hey Hawk, welcome in. Gotta stay hydrated. Don't forget to stretch. And a big stretch. And this goes for you raiders too. If you need to hydrate, caffeinate, stretch, grab a snack, or you just want to mellow out and enjoy the stories, please just make yourself comfortable and take care of yourselves. Let's see. So we are on to chapter 9. You know, Kintron, you raise an interesting query. I mean, they must still exist even without governance. I mean, I imagine those other kingdoms knew that the princess was enchanted. I don't imagine that they would hide that fact. And I do imagine that they probably know that the king and queen had died, her parents. I don't know. It's a fairy tale. We can only surmise that they must have just existed on autopilot until the princess, aka the queen, took up the leadership again. You're very welcome, Moog. Be sure to have something delicious. All right. We're on to chapter 9, The Golden Goose. Oh, I think I've heard this one before. Hopefully it's an interesting version of it. There was a man who had 3 sons, the youngest of whom was considered very silly, as is the way of young sons. And everybody used to mock him and make fun of him. The eldest son wanted to go and cut wood in the forest, and before he left home his mother prepared beautiful pancakes and a bottle of wine for him to take with him, so that he might not suffer from hunger or thirst. "Mummy, can I have some pancakes and wine for the road?" Yeah. Quite silly. Why pancakes? Why wine? I have questions. As he entered the forest, he met a grey old man, who bade him good morning, and said, "Give me a little piece of cake out of your basket, and a drop of wine out of your bottle, for I am very hungry and thirsty." But the clever son replied, "What? Give you my cake and my wine? Why, if I did, I should have none for myself. Not I. Indeed, so take yourself off." And he left the man standing and went on. The young man began cutting down a tree, but it was not long before he made a false stroke. The axe slipped and cut his arm so badly that he was obliged to go home and have it bound up. Now, this false stroke was caused by the little gray old man. Speaking of little gray old men, hi, Almontes. Welcome in. Can I get a shout out for Manny, please? The timing was immaculate. Next day, the second son went into the forest to cut wood, and his mother gave him a cake and a bottle of wine. As he entered the wood, the same little old man met him and begged for a piece of cake and a drop of wine. But the second son answered rudely, "What I might give to you, I shall want myself, so be off." So Almontes is a variety streamer here on Twitch. Calligraphy, model painting.
Bad dodge, but I wasn't punished. I deserve to be punished. I deserve to be punished.
One of the many times that he died. I don't know what the death counter was, but it was incredible. Look, it's okay. Thank you, Move. You're being noticed. Of course you're being noticed. So Almontes, like I said, variety streamer, super chill vibes, educational streams, works with a lot of other VTubers. It paused around 1,200. You died 1,200 times? 1,200 times. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. I'm truly shocked that, my goodness. Well, you know, whatever it is that makes you happy, I guess. You died 1,337 times before you made a new character, but I forget how many were on the second run. Oh dear. Oh, and Mukia's here. Welcome in, Mukia. I hope you're doing well. Mukia is another amazing streamer with a super silky voice here on Twitch. If you guys aren't familiar with Mukiyaviti, she is a zombie siren, and let me tell you, the sirens, no lie. But again, amazing people. This is a great VC, or great stream with a lot of amazing people. Yeah, thank you, Madama. You laid down for a nap and woke up to me. I'm used to the other way around. Like people join me and then they lay down for a nap because I'm reading a story. Ah, there we go.
Is that specific?
Oh.
What? Already?
Wow, Rocket Tunnel.
Damn. No mercy.
What? What was that?
Aw.
Ooh, a little
That was
Dead by
Mori.
Daylight, it looks like.
Oh wait,
No,
that
that's
was
a
a
Mori.
Memento Mori. Was that an ultra rare though?
Yeah.
No, we shouldn't have been using ultra rares.
Oh, merciless.
Mm.
Oh well, we'll just clarify that next time.
Always a good time. A couple of the folks that I like to. Oh, you just did Monster Prom 4. Oh, that's MonsterCon, right? I think. Yeah. The Average Dating Convention. Oh, and Trist and Luca were in that collab, and Otakamaru Bubs. Wonderful. I can believe that. I've really enjoyed. I did a collab with Almontis. Almontis, Ronin Hostorian, and Nianomancer, the wizard, the cat that is also a wizard. We did the first game. We'll build up to that. We were gonna do a collab on the 16th, but I think we might have to push that out due to extenuating circumstances, be what they may. Anyway, we are reading The Golden Goose. I often get distracted. I wish I had my own keys to jingle to remind me. Okay, back to the story. There we go. But the second son answered rudely, "What I might give to you I shall want myself, so be off." Then he left the little old man standing in the road and walked on. His punishment soon came. He had scarcely given 2 strokes on a tree with his axe when he hit his leg such a terrible blow that he was obliged to limp home in great pain. Then the stupid son said to his father, "Let me go for once and cut wood in the forest." But his father said, "No, your brothers have been hurt already, and it would be worse for you, who don't understand woodcutting." The boy, however, begged so hard to be allowed to go that his father said, "There, get along with you. You will buy your experience very dearly, I expect." His mother, however, gave him a cake, which had been made with water and baked in the ashes, and a bottle of sour beer. When he reached the wood, the very same little old man met him, and after greeting him kindly, said, "Give me a little of your cake and a drop from your bottle, for I am very hungry and thirsty." "Oh," replied the simple youth, "I have only a cake which has been baked in the ashes and some sour beer, but you are welcome to a share of it. Let us sit down and eat and drink together." So they seated themselves, and lo and behold, when the youth opened his basket, the cake had been turned into a beautiful cake, and the sour beer into wine. Thank you, Wandy. Thank you for the head pats. After they had eaten and drank enough, the little old man said, "Because you have been kind-hearted and shared your dinner with me, I will make you in future lucky in all you undertake. There stands an old tree. Cut it down, and you will find something good at the root." Then the old man said, "Farewell," and left him. The youth set to work, and very soon succeeded in felling the tree, when he found sitting at the roots a goose whose feathers were of pure gold. He took it up, and instead of going home, carried it with him to an inn at a little distance, where he intended to pass the night. The landlord had 3 daughters, who looked at the goose with envious eyes. They had never seen such a wonderful bird, and longed to have at least one of its feathers. Ah, thought the eldest, I shall soon have an opportunity to pluck one of them. And so it happened, for not long after the young man left the room, she instantly went up to the bird and took hold of its wing, but as she did so, the finger and thumb remained and stuck fast. In a short time after, the second sister came in with the full expectation of gaining a golden feather, but as she touched her sister to move her from the bird, her hand stuck fast to her sister's dress, and neither of them could free herself. At last, in came the third sister with the same intention. Keep away, screamed the other 2. In heaven's name, keep away. But she could not imagine why she should keep away. If they were near the golden bird, why should not she be there? So she made a spring forward and touched her second sister, and immediately she also was made a prisoner, and in this position they were obliged to remain by the goose all night. In the morning the young man came in, took the goose on his arm, and went away without troubling himself about the 3 girls who were following close behind him, and as he walked quickly, they were obliged to run one behind the other, left or right of him, just as he was inclined to go. In the middle of a field, they were met by the parson of the parish, who looked with wonder at the procession as it came near him. "Shame on you!" he cried out. "What are you about, you bold-faced hussies?" Oh. Gandalf, thank you for the resubscribe. That's very kind. Listen to it as audiobook. Thank you. I will do my best. "Shame on you," he cried. He cried out, "What are you about, you bold-faced hussies, running after a young man in that way through the fields? Go home, all of you." He placed his hand on the youngest to pull her back, but the moment he touched her, he also became fixed, and was obliged to follow and run like the rest. In a few moments the clerk met them, and when he saw the parson running after the girls, he wondered greatly and cried out, "Halloa! Master Parson, where are you running in such haste? Have you forgotten that there is a christening today?" And as the procession did not stop, he ran after it and seized the parson's gown. We can see where this is going. In a moment, he found that his hand was fixed, and he also had to run like the rest. And now there were 5 trotting along, one behind the other. Presently 2 peasants came by with their sickles from the field. The parson called out to them, and begged them to come and release him and the clerk. Hardly had they touched the clerk when they also stuck fast as the others, and the simpleton with his golden goose travelled with the 7. After a while, they came to a city in which reigned a king, who had a daughter of such a melancholy disposition that no one could make her laugh. Therefore he issued a decree that whoever would make the princess laugh should have her in marriage. Now, when the simple youth heard this, he ran before her, and the whole 7 trotted after him. The sight was so ridiculous that the moment the princess saw it, she burst into a violent fit of laughter, and they thought she would never leave off. After this, the youth went to the king and demanded his daughter in marriage, according to the king's decree. But his majesty did not quite like to have the young man for a son-in-law, so he said that before he could consent to the marriage, the youth must bring him a man who could drink all the wine in the king's cellar. The simpleton went into the forest, for he thought, "If anyone can help me, it is the little gray man." When he arrived at the spot where he had cut down the tree, there stood a man with a very miserable face. The youth asked him why he looked so sorrowful. "Oh," he exclaimed, "I suffer such dreadful thirst that nothing seems able to quench it, and cold water I cannot endure. I have emptied a cask of wine already, but it was just like a drop of water on a hot stone." "I can help you," cried the young man. "Come with me, and you shall have your fill, I promise you." Upon this, he led the man into the king's cellar, where he opened the casks one after another and drank till his back arched, and before the day closed he had quite emptied the king's cellar. Again the young man asked for his bride, but the king was annoyed at the thought of giving his daughter to such a common fellow, and to get rid of him he made another condition. He said that no man should have his daughter who could not find someone able to eat up a whole mountain of bread. Side note, Bread mentioned, Yuki Tsukumori is a baker, and if she were here, she'd be like, "Bread mentioned." So, in honor of Yuki, bread. Away went the simpleton to the forest as before, and there in the same place sat a man binding himself round tightly with a belt, and making the most horrible faces. As the youth approached, he cried, "I have eaten a whole ovenful of rolls, but it has not satisfied me a bit. I am as hungry as ever, and my stomach feels so empty that I am obliged to bind it round tightly, or I should die of hunger." The simpleton could hardly contain himself for joy when he heard this. "Get up," he exclaimed, "and come with me, and I will give you plenty to eat, I'll warrant." So he led him to the king's court, where his majesty had ordered all the flour in the kingdom to be made into bread, and piled up in a huge mountain. The hungry man placed himself before the bread and began to eat, and before evening the whole pile had disappeared. Then the simpleton went a third time to the king and asked for his bride. But the king made several excuses, and at last said that if he could bring him a ship that would travel as well by land as by water, then he should, without any further conditions, marry his daughter. The youth went at once straight to the forest and saw the same old gray man to whom he had given his cake. "Ah," he said as the youth approached, "it was I who sent the men to eat and drink, and I will also give you a ship that can travel by land or by sea, because when you thought I was poor, you were kind-hearted and gave me food and drink." The youth took the ship, and when the king saw it, he was quite surprised, but he could not any longer refuse to give him his daughter in marriage. The wedding was celebrated with great pomp, and after the king's death, the simple woodcutter inherited the whole kingdom and lived happily with his wife. Are we going to talk about the golden goose or the 7 people touching the goose? I don't know. I feel like there's some loose ends in this particular story that don't seem to have been like congealed into some sort of ending that the inquisitive mind that I have, want to know. I need to know. Like, what happened? What happened to the parson, the 3 sisters, the clerk that are like, what's going on? I don't know. The 2 woodcutters. It's very absurd. Anyway, A mountain of bread does, in fact, sound very tasty. Now, we are at 15 minutes. Let me see how long. We'll try. We'll try and read this chapter 10 in the next 15 minutes. They lived. They did, in fact, live. We'll try and read chapter 10, the 12 brothers, and then after that, we'll have to go on another ad break. Yes. So, hang tight. Let's go ahead and get started here, and then we'll see how far we get. Worst case scenario, we pause, do an ad break, and finish the story after. So, chapter 10. The 12 brothers. There were once a king and queen who had 12 children, all boys. Now one day the king told his wife that if a daughter should be born, all the sons must die, that their sister alone might inherit his kingdom and riches. So the king had 12 coffins made, which were filled with shavings, and in each was a little pillow for the dead. He had them locked up in a private room, the key of which he gave to the queen, praying her not to speak of it to anyone. But the poor mother was so unhappy that she wept for a whole day and looked so sad that her youngest son noticed it. He had the Bible name of Benjamin and was always with his mother. "Dear mother," he said, "why are you so sorrowful?" "My child, I may not tell you," she replied, but the boy allowed her no rest till she unlocked the door of the private room and showed him the 12 coffins filled with shavings. "Dearest Benjamin," she said, "these coffins are for you and your brothers, for if you should ever have a little sister, you will all die and be buried in them." She wept bitterly as she told him, but her son comforted her and said, "Do not weep, dear mother. We will take care of ourselves and go far away." Then she took courage and said, "Yes, go away with your 11 brothers and remain in the forest." First of all, even if she was having one a year, 12 children is going to just wreck your body. Like this poor woman. And the king's like, "If you have a daughter, it's all over for the other 12. Just wild. Then she took courage and said, "Yes, go away with your 11 brothers and remain in the forest, and let one climb a tree from whence he will be able to see the tower of the castle. If I should have a son, a white flag shall be hoisted, and then you may return home. But if you see a red flag, you will know it is a girl, and then hasten away as fast as you can, and may heaven protect you. Every night I will pray for you, that you may not suffer from the cold in winter or the heat in summer." Then she blessed all her sons, and they went away into the forest, while each in turn mounted a high tree daily to watch for the flag on the tower. 11 days passed, and it was Benjamin's turn to watch. He saw the flag hoisted, and it was red, the signal that they must die. The brothers were angry and said, "Shall we suffer death on account of a maiden? When we find one, we will kill her to avenge ourselves." We're going to let that one sink in for a second. Hey, our mother is having a daughter, and her father wants to kill us. So rather than blame their father, we're going to just kill some random lady if we find her. Yeah, just let that one sink in. They went still farther into the forest, and came upon a most pleasant little cottage, which was uninhabited, thank God. "We will make this our home," they said, "and Benjamin, as you are the youngest and weakest, you shall stay at home and keep house, while we go out and procure food." So they wandered about the forest, shooting hares, wild rabbits, pigeons, and other birds, which they brought to Benjamin to prepare for food. In this cottage they lived for 10 years happily together, so that the time passed quickly. Their little sister was growing a great girl. She had a sweet disposition and was very beautiful to look upon. She wore rich clothes and a golden star on her forehead. One day, when she was about 10 years old, she discovered in her mother's wardrobe 12 shirts. "Mother," she exclaimed, "whose shirts are these? They are much too small for my father." The queen sighed as she replied, "Dear child, these shirts belong to your 12 brothers." "12 brothers!" cried the little maiden. "Where are they? I have not heard of them." "Heaven knows where they are," was the reply, "but they are wandering about the world somewhere." Then the queen took her little daughter to the private room in the castle, and showed her the 12 coffins which had been prepared for her brothers, and related to her, with many tears, why they had left home. "Dear mother," said the child, "do not weep. I will go and seek my brothers." So she took the 12 shirts with her and wandered away into the forest. She walked for a whole day, and in the evening came to a cottage, stepped in, and found a young boy, who stared with astonishment at seeing a beautiful little girl dressed in rich clothing and wearing a golden star on her forehead. At last he said, "Who are you, and what do you want?" I am a king's daughter," she said, "and I seek my 12 brothers, and I intend to search for them till I find them." And she showed him their shirts. Then Benjamin knew that she was his sister, and said, "I am your youngest brother, Benjamin." Then she wept for joy. They kissed each other and with deep affection, and were for a time very happy. At last Benjamin said, "Dear sister, we have made a vow that the first young maiden we meet should die, because through a maiden we have lost our kingly rights." "I would willingly die," she said, as Vexing pauses to contemplate what that means. She said, if by so doing I could restore my brothers to their rightful possessions." "No, you shall not die," he replied. "Hide yourself behind this tub until our 11 brothers come home. Then I will make an agreement with them." At night the brothers returned from hunting, and the supper was ready. While they sat at table, one of them said, "Well, Benjamin, have you any news?" "Perhaps I have," he said, "although it seems strange that I, who stay at home, should know more than you who have been out." "Well, tell us your news," said one. So he said, "I will tell you if you will make one promise." "Yes, yes," they all cried. "What is it?" "Well, then, promise me that the first maiden you meet with in the forest shall not die." "Yes, yes," said they all. She shall have mercy. But tell us." "Then," said the youngest brother, "our sister is here." And rising, he lifted the tub, and the king's daughter came forth in her royal robes and with a golden star on her forehead, and looking so fair and delicate and beautiful that the brothers were full of joy, and kissed and embraced her with the fondest affection. She stayed with Benjamin, and helped him in keeping the house clean and cooking the game which the others brought home. Everything was so nicely managed now, and with so much order, the curtains and the quilts were beautifully white, and the dinners cooked so well that the brothers were always contented and lived in great unity with their little sister. There was a pretty garden around the house in which they lived, and one day when they were all at home dining together and enjoying themselves, the maiden went out into the garden to gather them some flowers. She had tended 12 lilies with great care, and they were now in such splendid bloom that she determined to pluck them for her brothers to please them. But the moment she gathered the lilies, her 12 brothers were changed into 12 ravens, and flew away over the trees of the forest, while the charming house and garden vanished from her sight. Now was the poor little maiden left all alone in the wild wood, and knew not what to do. But on turning round, she saw a curious old woman standing near, who said to her, "My child, what hast thou done? Why didst thou not leave these white flowers to grow on their stems? They were thy 12 brothers, and now they will always remain ravens." "Is there no way to set them free?" asked the maiden, weeping. "No way in the world," she replied, "but one, and that is far too difficult for thee to perform, yet it would break the spell and set them free." Again, how did we get here? We're just like, you know what? We're going to add a little, it's like, okay, we're building some kind of soup, and now we're going to just throw in an ostrich egg because we can. Why? Nobody knows. Yet it would break the spell and set them free. Hast thou firmness enough to remain dumb 7 years, and not speak to anyone or even laugh? For if ever you utter a single word, or fail only once in the 7 years, all you have done before will be vain, and at this one word your brothers will die. Yes. She's already broken it. "Yes," said the maiden, "I can do this to set my brothers free." Then the maiden climbed into a tree, and seating herself in the branches, began to knit. She remained here, living on the fruit that grew on the tree, and without laughing or uttering a word. As she sat in her tree, the king, who was hunting, had a favorite hound who very soon discovered her, ran to the tree on which the maiden sat, sprang up to it, and barked at her violently. The king came nearer, and saw the beautiful king's daughter with the golden star on her forehead. He was so struck with her beauty that he begged her to come down and asked her to be his bride. She did not speak a word, but merely nodded her head. Then the king himself climbed up into the tree, and bringing her down, seated her on his own horse, and galloped away with her to his home. The marriage was soon after celebrated with great pomp, but the bride neither spoke nor laughed. When they had lived happily together for some years, the king's mother, a wicked woman, began to raise evil reports about the queen, and said to the king, "It is some beggar girl you have picked up. Who can tell what wicked tricks she practices? She can't help being dumb, but why does she never laugh unless she has a guilty conscience?" The king at first would listen to none of these suspicions, but she urged him so long and accused the queen of such wicked conduct that at last he condemned her to be burnt to death. Again, just we're throwing in firecrackers. No apparent reason. I don't get it. Now in the courtyard a great fire was kindled, and the king stood weeping at a window overlooking the court of the palace. For he still loved her dearly. He saw her brought forth and tied to the stake. The fire kindled, and the flames with their forked tongues were creeping towards her, when at the last moment the 7 years were past, and suddenly a rustling noise of wings was heard in the air. 12 black ravens alighted on the earth and instantly assumed their own forms. They were the brothers of the queen. They tore down the pile and extinguished the fire, set their sister free, and embraced her tenderly. The queen, who was now able to speak, told the king why she had been dumb and had never laughed. The delight of the king was only equaled by his anger against the wicked witch, who was brought to justice and ordered to be thrown into a vat of oil full of poisonous snakes, where she died a dreadful death. Why was there snakes in the oil? There's so many twists and turns in this story. I don't know. Okay. Oh, old fairy tales, man. We're going on a journey. We're taking a left. We're taking a right. We're going left and we're left and we're back where we started and we're going to go right again. I don't know. Very confusing. But we are due for an ad break, which means it's about that time. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick 3-minute break, refill my water, and when I come back, we shall resume. I will read at least one more chapter, the fair one with the golden locks. Is it Goldilocks? Maybe. Is it like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see. Oh, ooh, big stretch. All right. So we'll go ahead and go on the ad break. And when I come back, we'll resume with chapter 11. So hang tight, everybody. Be right back. I love how you do things when I'm not here to acknowledge them. Hello, welcome in. Thank you, Fallen. Thank you for the gifted subs. That's so generous of you. Thank you very much. For let's see, we've got Mono Worm, Matthew Rice Seeker, Ryan the Space God, Renoa. Oh, that's another amazing creator that I met off of Underrealm, and then Silverhand Builds. I hope you all enjoy your emotes. Speaking of emotes, I'm in the early stages of getting prepared for a live 2D model debut. So don't get too excited, but I do have a model that is almost finished. We're in the rigging finalized, like, okay, what toggles where. So we'll be debuting that sometime in the not so distant future. But also I'm working with an emote artist. I have a couple of different emotes. I have a tiger, silly tiger one. I have a like a slightly spicier reading the reading trend emote. I'm not sure if I can get away with that one. I might work with the artist to do something about that. But I also have a couple of other emotes. So my primary emotes are done by Yuki, and after a year of being on hiatus, she is back, and so she'll be able to do. I have commissioned her for 10 more emotes. So we'll have more beautiful, fun stuff like this one here. Yes. So this artist, Yuki, so she is back. Not spicier than this. Yes, the herbal essences emote with the waterfall. Yes, 10 of 10. It's still one of the funniest. But yeah. So I've got that in the works. I'm trying to find a background artist because, it's like, hey, I have this amazing paint. I would like to have a canvas to put said paint on, aka the live 2D model, on a nice background. I reached out to an artist today. We'll see if we can get the ball rolling on that. Methinks not, but I'll do my best. The time notwithstanding. But yeah, I'm contemplating June, maybe even July, to do a live 2D debut. So I might just be lazy and hold off until September when I have to do my room to read donathon for that charity. I might do it then too. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. Well, just too many pieces in the works. I guess it'll depend on if I can get that background and a custom overlay done and what kind of timeline I'm in for that. Anyway, so that's something to look forward to. I digress. We are here for reading, and reading we shall do. We will do exactly... We shall do exactly... Huh. Okay, I guess I clicked on some things. We'll go back. We'll go ahead and we are reading, yes, The Fair One with the Golden Locks. So we're going to read this one last chapter for today, and then we're going to read out. So I must have been looking at the numbers. Whatever. And the next chapter is 15 pages. I remember that much. I guess I didn't scroll it back. What a day. What an absolutely bonkers day. All right. So we are reading chapter 11, The Fair One with the Golden Locks. Remember, stay hydrated. Oh, speaking of, we're gonna do the cardinal sin of drinking a caffeinated beverage, aka a soda. Woo! It is a soda, I promise. And because I'm very Alaskan, it's a spruce soda. It's very good. Ah, beautiful. A little variety. Ryan the Space God. Howdy, I got a gifted sub. Coincidentally, I've been looking for a streamer who can introduce me to new books. I guess this is fate. Perhaps it is. I don't know about new books, but I can definitely introduce you to books that you've probably never read. This particular book is from 1905, so I doubt that you've read it, but this is a collection of fairy tales that every child should know. This is from the Library of Congress, and I believe it was 1905. Don't quote me on that. Let me double check here. Go to the very beginning. Introduction. Oh dear. March of 1905. Hey, I remembered.
RR_Echo Mystery Fox 23 just followed.
RR Echo Meister. Echo Mystery Fox. Oh, that's a great name. I cannot take credit for it, Ryan. Fallen Thespian was generous enough to gift it. Okay. Let's see.
Hi.
Where? Hi. Welcome in. Let's see. We are on to the fair one with golden locks and about halfway through the book, to be honest. Some of these are very short and some of them are considerably longer. No, that's quite all right. I hope you enjoy your emotes. Let's see. Okay. Ta-da! There we go. Are these different sizes? They are. How odd. Whatever. Okay. Chapter 11. The Fair One with the Golden Locks. There was once a beautiful and amiable princess who was called the Fair One with locks of gold. For her hair shone brighter than gold and flowed in curls down to her feet. Her head was always encircled by a wreath of beautiful flowers and pearls and diamonds. A handsome, rich young prince, whose territories joined to hers, was deeply in love with the reports he heard of her, and sent to demand her in marriage. The ambassador sent with proposals was most sumptuously attired, and surrounded by lackeys on beautiful horses, as well as charged with every kind of compliment from the anxious prince, who hoped he would bring the princess back with him. But whether it was that she was not that day in a good humor, or that she did not like the speeches made by the ambassador, I don't know. But she returned thanks to his master for the honor he intended her, and said she had no inclination to marry. When the ambassador arrived at the king's chief city, where he was expected with great impatience, the people were extremely afflicted to see him return without the fair one with the locks of gold. And the king wept like a child. The lady writes, welcome in and thank you for the follow. There was a youth at court whose beauty outshone the sun, the gracefulness of whose person was not to be equaled, and for his gracefulness and wit he was called Avenant. The king loved him, and indeed everybody except the envious. Avenant, being one day in company with some persons, inconsiderately said, if the king had sent me to the fair one with locks of gold, I dare say I could have prevailed on her to return with me. These enviers of Avenant's prosperity immediately ran, open-mouthed, to the king, saying, Sir, sir, what does your majesty think Avenant says? He boasts that if you had sent him to the fair one with the golden hair, he could have brought her with him, which shows he is so vain as to think himself handsomer than your majesty, and that her love for him would have made her follow him wherever he went. Wherever he went. Those enviers. Welcome in, Lasada. I will not. Maybe. One day, when he was almost quite spent, he said to himself, fetching a deep sigh, Wherein can I have offended the king? He has not a more faithful subject than myself, nor have I done anything to displease him. Oh, how did we get there? I skipped ahead. This put the king into a violent rage. What? Said he. Does this youngster make a jest at my misfortune and pretend to set himself above me? Go and put him immediately in my great tower, and there let him starve to death. The king's guards went and seized Avenant.
I have never been fucked this hard before by a tree.
Lasada. That was the shortest clip I've ever seen. That was great. I don't even know what it was. I looked up and it, whoop, it's gone. Welcome in, Raiders. Hello, my name is Vexing Cat. Oh, and your wife is here too. Hey, Mousavi. Yes, I will get loved on. Thank you. For those of you not familiar with Lasada, Lasada is an amazing Querel. He is a variety streamer and has a great model, and he also has a very cursed model by Sabrina Scissor Runner, who was here earlier today. Of what are they called? Furbies? I think they were very popular during the 90s. It was Mao yelling about Elden Ring. Oh, that's on track. Mao is a spicy, spicy bean, and yes, we love Mao, the talented artist, the exuberant, vigorous, vivacious Mao is wonderful. But yes, Lasada, if you guys are not familiar with his content, great streamer, variety streamer, lots of games, some older games, a lot of, I would call them RPGs probably. There was this one he was playing that he's like on a map, and he had, like all of his followers and people that like frequent his chats all had characters in the game that he made for them. And that was really fun to watch us. I was a ranger, and it was fun to watch him play through Etrian Odyssey. Yes, thank you. But yeah, be sure to check out Lasada if you're not already giving him a follow. Check him out. I think you will be very, very pleased with his content. Oh, wonderful. I can't wait to see more of it. For you wonderful raiders that are not familiar with me, hello, I am Vexing Cat. I am primarily a booktuber. I am a tiger librarian streamer. I mostly read classic literature like today, and poetry. I am reading from Fairy Tales Every Child Should Know from Hamilton Wright Maybe from 1905. And this is the fair one with the golden locks. And 1/4 of what she said was even true. Ah, shenanigans. All the shenanigans. Okay. What, said he, does this youngster make a jest at my misfortune and pretend to set himself above me? Go and put him immediately in my great tower, and there let him starve to death. The king's guards went and seized Avenant, who thought no more of what he had said, dragged him to prison, and used him in the most cruel manner. I don't know what that means, and I don't think I want to. One day, when he was almost quite spent, he said to himself, fetching a deep sigh, Wherein can I have offended the king? Most likely. He has not a more faithful subject than myself, nor have I ever done anything to displease him. The king happened at that time to pass by the tower, and stopped to hear him, notwithstanding the persuasions of those that were with him. Hold your peace, replied the king, and let me hear him out. Which having done, and being greatly moved by his sufferings, he opened the door of the tower, and called him by his name, upon which Avenant came forth in a sad condition, and throwing himself at the king's feet, "What have I done, sir," said he, "that your majesty should use me thus severely?" "Thou hast ridiculed me and my ambassador," replied the king, "and hast said that if I had sent thee to the fair one with the locks of gold, thou couldst have brought her with thee." "It is true, sire," replied Avenant, "for I would have done for I would have so thoroughly convinced her of your transcending qualities that it should not have been in her power to have denied me, and this surely I said in the name of your majesty." The king found in reality he had done no injury, so he took him away with him, repenting heartily of the wrong he had done him. After having given him an excellent supper, the king sent for him into his cabinet. "Avenant," said he, "I still love the fair one with locks of gold. I have mind to send thee to her, to try whether thou canst succeed."
Squishy EIYYI you just followed.
Oh. That is... Oh dear. Squishy! Welcome in. Thank you for the follow. "I still love the fair one with locks of gold. I have a mind to send thee to her, to try whether thou canst succeed." Avenant replied he was ready to obey his majesty in all things, and would depart the very next morning. "Hold," said the king, "I will provide thee first with a most sumptuous equipage." "There is no necessity for that," answered Avenant. "I need only a good horse and your letters of credence." "Credence? Of credence." Upon this the king embraced him, being overjoyed to see him so soon ready. Thank you for the head pats. It was upon a Monday morning that he took leave of the king and his friends, being on his journey by break of day, and entering into a spacious meadow, a fine thought came into his head. He alighted immediately, and seated himself by the bank of a little stream that watered one side of the meadow, and wrote the sentiment down in his pocket-book. After he had done writing, he looked about him every way, being charmed with the beauties of the place, and suddenly perceived a large gilded carp, which stirred a little, and that was all it could do, for having attempted to catch some little flies, it had leaped so far out of the water as to throw itself upon the grass, where it was almost dead, not being able to recover its natural element. Avenant took pity on the poor creature, and though it was a fish day, and he might have carried it away for his dinner, he took it up and gently put it again into the river, where the carp, feeling the refreshing coolness of the water, began to rejoice, and sunk to the bottom, but soon rising up again, brisk and gay, to the side of the river. "Avenant," said the carp, "I thank you for the kindness you have done me. Had it not been for you, I had died. But you have saved my life, and I will reward you." After this short compliment, the carp darted itself to the bottom of the water, leaving Avenant not a little surprised at its wit and great civility. For those of you not in the know, carp are the progenitors of goldfish and koi. So same family, and carp still exist in the wild today, but that's what we've used and bred to make Ryukin and beautiful butterfly koi, etc., etc. All the various bubble-eye goldfish and whatnots. Another day, as he was pursuing his journey, he saw a crow in great distress.
The Bookfather just rated with 16 viewers.
Oh dear. Bookfather, welcome back. We closed our book and stopped everything so we could raid you. Oh, that's so kind. You guys, you have to check out Bookfather. He is a live streamer, a face cam streamer. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hello. For those of you not in the know, like I said, the Bookfather. Here we go.
Near exhaustion when Ted, having consumed half of the bourbon, I keep saying bourbon. I don't know why. Spoke up. Alice, may I see your notes? Ted asked, slurring his bourbon-soaked words. Sure. But they're all scribbly and messy. You know, every time I mess up on a word, Stunt Mama just shows up.
The Bookfather, like I said, lovely streamer. You were reading, what was that? The Whistle of Revenge. Oh, that's got a nice ring to it, doesn't it? But yes, the Bookfather, everyone. Wonderful streamer, booktuber. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a booktuber. It would just be book streamer, orator, storyteller. There we go. Another storyteller here on Twitch. So if you're looking for good stories, I highly recommend The Bookfather. And thank you so much for the kindness of the raid. For you wonderful raiders not familiar with my content, my name is Vexing Cat. You can call me Vex or Vexing or Miss Vex if you're being very naughty. And I read classic literature and poetry, and currently I'm reading Fairy Tales Every Child Should Know. This is a collection of short stories from 1905 by Hamilton Wright, maybe. But yes, welcome in, settle in, and enjoy the story. I'm reading my last story. And Jiggy, hey, welcome in. Jiggy's a Badger VTuber variety streamer who I met through Ink Moon Arts, who's an amazing artist. But yeah, Jiggy, welcome in. Can I get a shout out for Jiggy too? Like I said, variety streamer based off of a Badger, I do believe. Amazing design. I think it was Inky that made his design. But he's super chill, and you should check him out too. Goodness gracious, there's so many cool people today. And that is my cat. Nope. That's the dogs. The dogs are singing the songs of their people. I hope you guys... I'm hoping that the... Oh my goodness. Yep. My goodness. I am so sorry. You guys can't hear it, but I can. And it is very distracting. So instead, we'll watch this shout out video of Jiggy. Oh, the horror tier list. Yeah, you were doing that with was it another like mermaid, no, siren VTuber. What was his name?
Hold your tits. Hold my balls. There you go. There's the exchange.
Oh, your old model. That was just a second. And also Guts, welcome in. Hello. Yeah. They usually get a little freaked out whenever the good night, Musavi. Mousavi. Ugh, brain. Mousavi, I hope you have a good night's rest. Thank you for stopping in, and thank you for coming in with Lasada. Hey, hey, Mara. Look at that. Great. Wow, it's a busy one. So everyone, yes. I'm just astounded. So many people are stopping by today. Of course, Jiggy. But yeah, variety streamer. Check out his content. He was doing a tier list the other day for like murder. Like if you would get murdered in a horror movie or if you would be the murderer. Pretty neat idea, actually. I am so sorry. They are just having a time up there. Any sort of husky variant speaks the song of the husky. It could be like 2% husky, and if they have the voice, they will sing the song of their people that is great and profound, and tell you of the sorrows of their many generations in great detail. Great dogs, but man, are they silly. Okay, where were we? Let's see. Ah, yes. The fair one with the golden locks. Another day, as he was pursuing his journey, he saw a crow in great distress. Being pursued by a huge eagle, he took his bow, which he always carried abroad with him, and aiming at the eagle, let fly an arrow, which pierced him through the body, so that he fell down dead. Which the crow, seeing, came in ecstasy of joy and perched upon a tree. "Avenant," said the crow, "you have been extremely generous to succor me, who am but a poor, wretched crow, but I am not ungrateful, and will do you as good a turn." Avenant admired the wit of the crow, and continued his journey. He entered into a wood so early one morning that he could scarcely see his way, where he heard an owl crying out like an owl in despair. Heard an owl crying out like an owl in despair. Huh. Okay. Moving on. Sometimes I'm just left wondering, like, what was the thought process in some of these? So, looking about everywhere, he at length came to a place where certain fowlers had spread their nets in the night time to catch little birds. "What pity 'tis," said he, "men are only made to torment one another, or else to persecute poor animals who never do them any harm." So saying, he drew his knife, cut the cords, and set the owl at liberty, who, before he took wing, said, "Avenant, the fowlers are coming. I should have been taken and must have died without your assistance. I have a grateful heart, and will remember it." These were the 3 most remarkable adventures that befell Avenant in his journey, and when he arrived at the end of it, he washed himself, combed and powdered his hair, and put on a suit of cloth of gold, which having done, he put a rich embroidered scarf about his neck, with a small basket, wherein was a little dog which he was very fond of. And Avenant was so amiable, and did everything with so good a grace, that when he presented himself at the gate of the palace, all the guards paid him great respect. And every one strove who should first give notice to the fair one with locks of gold. That Avenant, the neighboring king's ambassador, demanded audience. The princess, on hearing the name of Avenant, said, "It has a pleasing sound, and I dare say he is agreeable and pleases everybody." One moment. And thus the postman arrived and left again. All right, where were we? It has a pleasing sound, and I dare say he is agreeable and pleases everybody. And she said to her maids of honor, "Go fetch me my rich embroidered gown of blue satin. Dress my hair, and bring me wreaths of fresh flowers. Let me have my high shoes and my fan, and let my audience chamber and throne be clean and richly adorned. For I would have him everywhere with truth say that I am really the fair one with locks of gold." Thus, all her women were employed to dress her as a queen should be. At length she went to her great gallery of looking-glasses to see if anything was wanting, after which she ascended her throne of gold, ivory, and ebony, the fragrant smell of which was superior to the choicest balm. Thank you for the follow, Jiggy. Let's see. At length she went to her great gallery of looking-glasses to see if anything was wanting, after which she ascended her throne of gold, ivory, and ebony, the fragrant smell of which was superior to the choicest balm. She also commanded her maids of honor to take her instruments and play to their own singing so sweetly that none should be disgusted. Avenant was conducted into the chamber of audience, where he stood so transported with admiration that, as he afterwards said, he had scarcely power to open his lips. At length, however, he took courage and made his speech wonderfully well, wherein he prayed the princess not to let him be so unfortunate as to return without her. "Gentle Avenant," said she, "all the reasons you have laid before me are very good, and I assure you, I would rather favor you than any other, but you must know, about a month since, I went to take the air by the side of a river with my maids of honor. As I was pulling off my glove, I pulled a ring from my finger, which by accident fell into the river. This ring I valued more than my whole kingdom, whence you may judge how much I am afflicted by the loss of it, and I have made a vow never to hearken to any proposals of marriage unless the ambassador who makes them shall also bring my ring. This is the present which you have to make me. Otherwise you may talk your heart out for months and even years shall never change my resolution." When he returned to his lodgings, he went to bed supperless, and his little dog, who was called Cabrioli, that beautiful name, who was called Caprioli, made a fasting night of it too, and went and lay down by his master, who did nothing all night but sigh and lament, saying, "How can I find a ring that fell into a great river a month ago? It would be folly to attempt it. The princess enjoined me this task, merely because she knew it was impossible." Hi, Yuki, welcome in. Hydrate before you dihydrate. Hi. Hi. Oh, you're running through the whole gambit.
Snack time!
Well, she's on a roll. Don't forget to stretch. Thank you, Yuki. For those of you not familiar with Yuki Sugimori, she is a 100-plus-year-old snow leopard baker, and she is part of Gen 2 of Underrealm, and she is absolutely lovely. And Forest Cabin Reads! Oh, that's another booktuber here on Twitch. They are also, like the Bookfather, a live, I guess that would be a live cam streamer? Yes. She's absolutely lovely, by the way. She also does some, like, cool crafting streams as well. You missed me. I missed you, too. It was a very busy month of April, let me tell you. And Cartel. Ah, hoy! Welcome in. Waves. I wish I could wave. Maybe when I get my new model, I can wave. We'll figure it out. Okay. The princess enjoined me this task, merely because she knew it was impossible. He continued, greatly afflicted, which Camprioli observed, said, My dear master, pray do not despair of your good fortune, for you are too good to be unhappy. Therefore, when it is day, let us go to the riverside. Avenant made no answer, but gave his dog 2 little cuffs with his hand, and being overwhelmed with grief, fell asleep. But when Camprioli perceived it was broad day, he fell a barking so loud that he waked his master. Rise, sir, said he, put on your clothes, and let us go and try our fortune. Avenant took his little dog's advice, got up and dressed himself, went down into the garden, and out of the garden he walked insensibly to the river side, with his hat over his eyes, and his arms across, thinking of nothing but taking his leave, when all of a sudden he heard a voice call, Avenant! Avenant! Upon which he looked around him, but seeing nothing, he concluded it was an illusion, and was proceeding in his walk. But he presently heard himself called again. Who calls me? Said he. Caprioli, who was very little, and looked closely into the water, cried out, Never believe me, if it is not a gilded carp. Immediately the carp appeared, and with an audible voice said, Avenant, you saved my life in the poplar meadow, where I must have died without your assistance, and now I am come to requite your kindness. Here, my dear Avenant, here is the ring which the fair one with locks of gold dropped into the river. Upon which he stooped and took it out of the carp's mouth, to whom he returned 1,000 thanks. And now, instead of returning home, he went directly to the palace with little Camprioli, who skipped about and wagged his tail for joy. Then he had persuaded his master to walk by the side of the river. The princess, being told that Avenant desired an audience, Alas, said she, the poor youth has come to take his leave of me. He has considered what I enjoined him as impossible, and is returning to his master. But Avenant, being admitted, presented her the ring, saying, Madame, behold, I have executed your command, and now I hope you will receive my master for your royal consort. When she saw her ring, and that it was no ways injured, she was so amazed that she could hardly believe her eyes. Surely, courteous Avenant, said she, you must be favored by some fairy, for naturally this is impossible. Madam, said he, I am acquainted with no fairy, but I was willing to obey your command. Well then, seeing you have so good a will, continued she, you must do me another piece of service, without which I will never marry. There is a certain prince who lives not far from hence, whose name is Galafron, and whom nothing would serve but that he must needs marry me. He declared his mind to me with most terrible menaces, that if I denied him, he would enter my kingdom with fire and sword, but you shall judge whether I would accept his proposal. He is a giant, as high as a steeple. He devours men as an ape eats chestnuts. Is that common? Okay. When he goes into the country, he carries cannons in his pockets to use instead of pistols, and when he speaks aloud, he deafens the ears of those that stand near him. I answered him that I did not choose to marry, and desired him to excuse me. Nevertheless, he has not ceased to persecute me, and has put an infinite number of my subjects to the sword. Therefore, before all other things, you must fight him and bring me his head. Avenant, was somewhat startled by this proposal, but having considered it a while, "Well, madam," said he, "I will fight this Gallifron. I believe I shall be vanquished, but I will die like a man of courage." The princess was astonished at his intrepidity. What a word. Intrepidity. And said 1,000 things to dissuade him from it, but all in vain. At length he arrived at Gallifron's castle, the roads all the way being strewed with the bones and carcasses of men which the giant had devoured or cut in pieces. It was not long before Avenant saw the monster approach, and he immediately challenged him, but there was no occasion for this, for he lifted his iron mace, and had certainly beat out the gentle Avenant's brains at the first blow, had not a crow at that instant perched upon the giant's head, and with his bill pecked out both his eyes. The blood trickled down his face, whereat he grew desperate, and laid about him on every side, but Avenant took care to avoid his blows, and gave him many great wounds with his sword, which he pushed up to the very hilt, so that the giant fainted, and fell down with loss of blood. Avenant immediately cut off his head, and while he was in an ecstasy of joy for his good success, the crow perched upon a tree, and said, "Avenant, I did not forget the kindnesses I received at your hands when you killed the eagle that pursued me. I promised to make you amends, and now I have been as good as my word." "I acknowledge your kindness, Mr. Crow," replied Avenant. "I am still your debtor, and your servant." So saying, he mounted his courser, and rode away with the giant's horrid head. When he arrived at the city, everybody crowded after him, crying out, "Long live the valiant Avenant, who has slain the cruel monster!" So that the princess, who heard the noise, and trembling for fear she should have heard of Avenant's death, durst not inquire what was the matter. But presently, after she saw Avenant enter with the giant's head, at the sight of which she trembled, though there was nothing to fear. "Madam," said he, "behold, your enemy is dead. And now, I hope you will no longer refuse the king, my master." "Alas," replied the fair one with locks of gold, "I must still refuse him, unless you can find means to bring me some of the water of the gloomy cave, not far from hence." This lady, she, as they would say, she, continued she, "there is a very deep cave, about 6 leagues in compass, the entrance into which is guarded by 2 dragons. And when you have got into this cave, you will meet with a very deep hole, into which you must go down, and you will find it full of toads, adders, and serpents. At the bottom of this hole there is a kind of cellar, through which runs the fountain of beauty and health. This is the water I must have. Its virtues are wonderful for the fair. By washing in it, preserve their beauty. And the deformed it renders beautiful. If they are young, it preserves them always youthful, and if old, it makes them young again. Now judge you, Avenant, whether I will ever leave my kingdom without carrying some of this water along with me." "Madam," said he, "you are so beautiful that this water will be of no use to you, but I am an unfortunate ambassador whose death you seek. However, I will go in search of what you desire, though I am certain never to return." At length he arrived at the top of a mountain, where he sat down to rest himself, giving his horse Liberty to feed, and Camprioli to run after the flies. He knew that the gloomy cave was not far off, and looked about to see whether he could discover it, and at length he perceived a horrid rock as black as ink, whence issued a thick smoke. And immediately after he spied one of the dragons casting forth fire from his jaws and eyes, his skin all over yellow and green, with prodigious claws and a long tail rolled up in 100 folds. Avenant, with a resolution to die in the attempt, drew his sword, and with a file? Yeah. And with a phial which the fair one with locks of gold had given him to fill with the water of beauty, went towards the cave, saying to his little dog, Cambriola, here is an end of me. I never shall be able to get this water. It is so well guarded by the dragons. Therefore, when I am dead, fill this phial with my blood, and carry it to my princess, that she may see what her severity has cost me. Then go to the king, my master, and give him an account of my misfortunes. While he was saying this, he heard a voice call, Avenant, Avenant. Who calls me? Said he. And presently he espied an owl in the hole of an old hollow tree, who, calling him again, said, You rescued me from the fowler's net, where I had been assuredly taken. Had you not delivered me, where I had assuredly been taken. I had been assuredly taken. Just the way that reads, ooh. You rescued me from the fowler's net, where I had been assuredly taken. Had you not delivered me, I promised to make you amends, and now the time is come. Give me your phial. I am acquainted with all the secret inlets into the gloomy cave, and will go and fetch you the water of beauty. Avenant most gladly gave the phial, and the owl, entering without any impediment into the cave.
Mr. Gale just followed.
Welcome in, Mr. Gale. Thank you for the follow. Avenant most gladly gave the phial, and the owl, entering without any impediment into the cave, filled it, and in less than a quarter of an hour returned with it well stopped. Avenant was overjoyed at his good fortune, gave the owl 1,000 thanks, and returned with a merry heart to the city. Being arrived at the palace, he presented the phial to the fair one with locks of gold, who had then nothing further to say. She returned Avenant thanks, and gave orders for everything that was requisite for her departure, after which she set forward with him. The fair one with locks of gold thought Avenant very amiable, and said to him sometimes upon the road, If you had been willing, I could have made you a king, and then we need not have left my kingdom. But Avenant replied, I would not have been guilty of such a piece of treachery to my master for all the kingdoms of the earth, though I must acknowledge your beauties are more resplendent than the sun. Oh, wait 1 second. Yeah, okay. At length they arrived at the king's chief city, who, understanding that the fair one with locks of gold was arrived, he went forth to meet her, and made her the richest presents in the world. The nuptials were solemnized with such demonstrations of joy that nothing else was discoursed of. But the fair one with locks of gold, who loved Avenant in her heart, was never pleased but when she was in his company, and would be always speaking in his praise. I had never come hither, said she to the king, had it not been for Avenant, who, to serve me, has conquered impossibilities. You are infinitely obliged to him. He procured me the water of beauty and health, by which I shall never grow old, and shall always preserve my health and beauty. The enviers of Avenant's happiness, who heard the queen's words, said to the king, Were your majesty inclined to be jealous, you have reason enough to be so, for the queen is desperately in love with Avenant. Indeed, said the king, I am sensible of the truth of what you tell me. Let him be put in the great tower, with fetters upon his feet and hands. Avenant was immediately seized. However, his little dog Cambrioli never forsook him, but cheered him the best he could, and brought him all the news of the court. When the fair one, with locks of gold, was informed of his misfortunes, she threw herself at the king's feet, and all in tears besought him to release Avenant out of prison. But the more she besought him, the more he was incensed, believing it was her affection that made her so zealous a suppliant in his behalf. Finding she could not prevail, she said no more to him, but grew very pensive and melancholy. The king took it into his head that she did not think him handsome enough. So he resolved to wash his face. With the water of beauty, in hopes that the queen would then conceive a greater affection for him than she had. The water stood in a phial upon a table in the queen's chamber, where she had put it, that it might not be out of her sight. But one of the chambermaids, going to kill a spider with her besom, by accident threw down the phial and broke it so that the water was lost. She dried it up with all the speed she could, and not knowing what to do, she bethought herself that she had seen a phial of clear water in the king's cabinet, very like that she had broken. Without any more ado, therefore she went and fetched that phial, and set it upon the table in the place of the other. This water, which was in the king's cabinet, was a certain water which he made use of to poison the great lords and princes of his court when they were convicted of any great crime, to which purpose, instead of cutting off their heads or hanging them, he caused their faces to be rubbed with this water, which cast them into so profound a sleep that they never waked again. Now the king one evening took this phial and rubbed his face well with the water, after which he fell asleep and died. Cambrioli was one of the first that came to a knowledge of this accident, and immediately ran to inform Avenant of it, who bid him go to the fair one with locks of gold, and remind her of the poor prisoner. Cambrioli slipped unperceived through the crowd, for there was a great noise and hurry at court upon the king's death. And getting to the queen, "Madam," said he, "remember poor Avenant." She presently called to mind the afflictions he had suffered for her sake, and his fidelity. Without speaking a word, she went directly to the great tower, and took off the fetters from Avenant's feet and hands herself. After which, putting the crown upon his head and the royal mantle upon his shoulders, "Amiable Avenant," said she, "I will make you a sovereign prince, and take you for my consort." Avenant threw himself at her feet, and in terms the most passionate and respectful returned her thanks. Everybody was overjoyed to have him for their king. The nuptials were the most splendid in the world, and the fair one, with locks of gold, lived a long time with her beloved Avenant, both happy and contented in the enjoyment of each other. Ah, what a wonderful story. Let's see. I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts, diddly-dee. I've got a couple of different readers out there. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and raid out. I don't want you guys to have to go through another ad, if at all possible. It looks like Neff is reading, Obsidian is reading. Who else do we have out here? Sino's doing some reading and doodling. Gordy is doing a partner push. Passia is doing first time just chatting stream. And we've got Cafe, Hulky Crow, Day is doing art, Bowen is doing Grand Theft Auto roleplay.
Ryan the Space
Oh,
God just followed.
Ryan the Space God, thank you for the follow. The clumsy maid was the hero all along. Yes, she was. I'm very, very hard to choose. I think we're gonna go say hello to Obsidian Reads. It's been a minute since we've raided out to her. So she's another VTuber. I believe she's a jackalope. I'm not 100%. I can't recall off the top of my head. But let's go ahead and pop over there. And she just started reading too, so she'll be at it for a minute. Folk tales. All right, so for the raid message, let's do the maid was the hero all along. I like that. That is very cute. Okay, so let's grab the raid emote. So anybody that's a follower, you can use this very same copy that. There we go. Copy all of that. There. If you're a follower, you should be able to use the raid emote. Yes, we are about to raid out to Obsidian Reads. Start the raid. And we'll be able to get out of here before we have to go to another ad break. So wonderful. Absolutely lovely. Yes, grab your raid message. Cha-cha-cha. And it's been an absolute pleasure, you guys. I will be back on Thursday. I'm going to be a lot earlier in the day. I am going to be playing Repo with Crutchins. So Twitch TV Crutchins on Thursday. I think that's going to start at like 1 p.m. Eastern, which 6 p.m. British summertime for you UK folks. So everyone, it's been great. I hope you have a wonderful evening and you enjoyed the stories. And I will see you all soon. Alley-oop.